Let's talk, Nate, about the way too early top 2025 rookie running backs. Can we say that this may be the best rookie running back class we've seen in a few years?
We always have to wait for the declares, who's going to go back to college. There's always one or two players that end up going back to college, especially running backs. If this is a pretty dense class, I would expect, one or two players to go back and, try again next year for draft capital. But we have a very strong class at the top. We're about 5, 6, maybe 7, 8 deep with players that I think can at least have day 2 draft capital, if not maybe first round. So definitely a lot better looking than this past year.
2023 was a really good rookie running back class. 24, not quite what we wanted it to be. 25 is looking up. So, Nate, we're going to dive into it here. Let's start first with Treveyon Henderson. Nate, I believe that you had said had he declared last year, he would have been your running back one. Am I correct in that assumption?
He would have been right there with Brooks. If Brooks hadn't been injured, he might have surpassed him. But with the Brooks injury, Treveyon Henderson would have been my RB1 last year. Right now, going into the season, I kind of have him penciled in as the RB1 for this class. So far, that is really on his history. An incredible freshman year at Ohio State. He walks onto campus and he puts up 183 carries for over 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns, Mike. As a true freshman, as an 18-year-old in the Big Ten playing for Ohio State, just dominated. The 2 years since, he has put up good numbers, but has missed some time. He's had some injuries. And that kind of comes from his physical play style. He is very physical. Sometimes when he has a defender coming down, he moves to hit the defender, to punish the defender. He's one of those guys that is looking to punish defenders, and it has caused injury to himself, injury to other players as well. So he's going to have to take a step back and be a little bit less physical, looking for contact moving forward, because that's not going to fly in the NFL. Those guys are going to be able to hit him back, and also he needs to stay healthy in whatever team he's on. But this guy's got great athleticism. He was the top running back recruit out of high school. This guy's been good since he started playing football, basically. And he goes to, a great team, Ohio State. He's been really productive there. He does have a running mate now in the backfield going into this year. But Treveyon Henderson, still the body of work he's put together, if he can stay healthy and, continue to look as he has, I think he has as good of a shot as anyone to be the RB1 in this year's class.
I like Treveyon Henderson. One thing I will add to that, his lateral agility is probably second to none in this class from what I've seen so far. I do think he is a better outside runner than inside runner. Of course, these are things that can all be improved on. And of course, I'm concerned about the health as well. So let's see how he is this year, and having this next guy, Quinshon Judkins, being his backfield running mate, it's going to alleviate some pressure from Treveyon Henderson. Nate, Quinshon Judkins, Treveyon Henderson was your one. Is he your right now number 2 in the class?
Mike, I hate giving running back rankings. Like, I'll give you my wide receiver rankings, my quarterback rank. Well, quarterback. But like running back, it is such a roller coaster. Draft stock and expected draft capital, not just because of the NFL and how they view the running back, but because with the running backs, that final season is more important than any other position. If they don't show up and produce that final season, their draft stock is gone, because it's all about what have you done for me lately as a running back. Quarterbacks, if they have a couple good seasons, then they have a bad year, teams will look past it for a good quarterback. If it's a wide receiver, they'll look past it for a good wide receiver. If it's a running back, they'll say, hey, I don't have any interest. Let me go find this other running back who performed well this year. Because it's a replaceable position, it's harder to, have solid rankings going into the season when there's still a whole college season left to play. But Judkins is definitely right up there with Treveyon Henderson, not only the 1A and 1B at Ohio State, but possibly the 1A and 1B of this class. Quinshon Judkins came into Ole Miss, and as a true freshman as well, just lit up the SEC. As a true freshman, he had 183 carries, had over 1,500 yards as a true freshman, 1,567 rushing yards. In the past 2 years at Ole Miss, he had over 2,700 rushing yards. This guy has been extremely productive in the SEC from a young age. He's a little bit bigger than Treveyon Henderson. He is 6 foot, 220 pounds. He also has great vision and patience. Not quite as athletically gifted as Treveyon Henderson, but certainly an athlete. Quinshon Judkins brings a lot to the table, and now is Ohio State. Both of these running backs could be top 12 running backs as soon as next season, the 2026 season or 2025 season for the NFL, because we know that there's a lot of running backs that are kind of aging out of the NFL. and these two guys could be entering the NFL with such hype. Maybe they're first-round prospects. I think both these guys could possibly go in the back half of the first round. That's how good they are. And if they do, we could see these guys be top 12 running backs in Dynasty as early as the rookie year.
I'm a big Quinshon Judkins fan, and I love the fact that, I know you say that Treveyon Henderson's a physical runner. I think Quinshon Judkins is more physical. This is a guy that can move the pile, and for his size, and you put on here, what is he, 6'2", yeah.
Yep.
An above average receiver as well. And he doesn't prototype like a guy who'd be a good receiving back, but I like what he does with the ball in his hands. I think he's fantastic. Very, very good vision, fantastic contact balance as well. And I like his footwork. Now, where Treveyon Henderson gets the edge here is that he has much better lateral movements, whereas Quinshon's are effective and efficient, but not really anything flashy, not anything that's going to make you go, ooh. It's enough to get an edge on a guy a little bit and then just give him better position to smack right into a defender and do what he needs to do. He's more of a run through you than run around you guy. And the fact is, there's going to be a place for this guy on an NFL roster. I could see him, you said possibly being productive in year one. I could see that.
Yeah.
Right situation. But then again, we say right situation and it could work out. We've seen running backs go into a bad situation and it works out because how many people get in front of him get hurt. You know what I mean? I know obviously we can't bank on that, but I think he's a guy that he's somewhat situation proof. I don't think there's many teams that he would go to where he would be held off the field for an incumbent. You got guys like Zeke are aging out, Derrick Henry's aging out, guys like that.
Yeah, I was actually about to say, I think we're going to see a large need for the running back position next year. We have a lot of guys aging out, like you just mentioned a couple of those, Alvin Kamara. If Kendre Miller is not the next best thing in New Orleans, they're going to be looking for a running back. And there's a lot of other teams where they have a guy they've drafted kind of recently, but didn't put a ton of draft capital, and they have a veteran, and they're making do, and they're probably going to be fine this year. But even like the Commanders, hey, we're fans of Brian Robinson here.
Yeah.
But Brian Robinson will be in the last year of his rookie contract next year. Austin Eckler might not even be on the team. Who knows? They could be looking for a running back. There's going to be a lot of people looking for a running back next year, and that's the draft to look for running backs.
But these are two guys that we're definitely keeping our eyes on. Now, we got another guy, a guy that I'm a big fan of, and I've been talking about him for a while now, and that is University of North Carolina's own Omarion Hampton.
A very physical runner, also 6'2", 220, similar size to Quinshon Judkins. Hampton is such a north-south runner.
He is.
He is a guy that is always looking to get up the field. You're not going to see him move sideline to sideline very often. He doesn't have great long speed, so he's always just trying to get up the field. He has good burst. He gets to the second level pretty quick, and he is one of those bowling ball kind of running backs where people just bounce off of him. He just bounces off of defenders, keeps moving forward, moves the pile. When he's contacted, he keeps moving his legs, keeps driving those legs, and he's able to get those extra yards really well. I've been impressed with what we've seen from Hampton. His freshman year had a couple flashes, but nothing too big. Only ran for about 403 yards. But last year really broke out. Had 1,500 rushing yards last year, Mike, with North Carolina. Had 15 touchdowns. Also had 29 receptions. So he is an all-around player. Really showed out last year. We'll see what he looks like with North Carolina this year. They'll obviously be without Drake May. Can he continue to look as strong when that offense takes a step back? We'll see. Omarion Hampton is definitely someone I'm keeping my eye on. I don't quite have him as a top 3 or 4 back in this class yet, but he is right outside of that. He's certainly in the top 5, top 6. That's why we're talking about him tonight. And I'm excited about him if he can continue to show us what he did last year.
And I love the fact that Omarion Hampton is very hard to bring down. Another pile mover. I will say one thing I noticed, his lateral agility is not great, more north-south. You discussed that. You're right. Very good spin moves, though, which I found odd. Not the best laterally, but he has good spin moves. Another guy who I think is just a smooth, natural receiver, but the decisiveness after the catch was a little inconsistent. Sometimes he looked really good, knew exactly what to do. Other times he just kind of stutter step and froze a little bit. Something that can be coached out, of course, and does not shy away from contact at all. So this is another guy, if you're tearing it up and this is the start of your second running back tier, you're still in a good spot here. This is a guy, do I think he's going to be a 3-down workhorse? I don't know if that really exists in the NFL anymore, short of guys like Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, and guys like that. But I think he has a shot to be that, and I think he's a guy that if he had a full workload, Year one, he's going to at least be probably a mid to high end running back too, with the explosiveness that he has. Nate, let's talk about a guy who loves to rack up yardage. Let's talk about Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State.
He was a sophomore who had 21 touchdowns, over 1,700 rushing yards, and ran the ball 285 times. He also caught 39 passes. This is, over 300 touches for Ollie Gordon last year. He received Heisman votes. He won the Doak Walker Award for best running back in the country. Ollie Gordon was the best running back in NCAA last year. So the expectations are high going into this year. How can you top such a season where, not only did your offense just rely on you to move the ball, but you were the offense at times. I mean, Ollie Gordon, he had 2 games where he had over 270 yards rushing, game with 4 touchdowns in one of those. This guy was uber productive, and it comes in with good size at 6'2", 215 pounds, could add a couple pounds to that frame. I would expect him to. By the time he gets in the NFL, we could see him, 6'1", 6'2", whatever that comes out to, about 225. It's probably where I expect him. And this is a guy who's got great long speed. As he gets bigger, his contact balance will get even better. It's already pretty good. This is a guy that's got a lot of strength to him already. I'm excited about this. What's he going to do to continue to improve? Because I don't know if the stats can improve, Mike. I don't know if, Ollie Gordon to have a better season this year is going to be really hard. So we're probably going to see a statistical decline, but that doesn't mean that Ollie Gordon got any worse. It's going to be hard to be that good again, especially when you have all these other running backs in the NCAA. They're going to be vying for that best running back of the year award. Ollie Gordon, a guy I'm really excited about, did lose some excitement though just earlier this week, Mike. He was pulled over and arrested for suspicion for a DUI. Long term, I don't think this is a big deal. We've had many other prospects that have had run-ins like this, and it's kind of just been a thing that happens, and then we all move on for better or worse. But something just to keep in mind is it just recently happened, so I should talk about it while we talk about him. But on the field, this guy's a volume rusher. He is a guy that gets better as the game goes on. He actually was the best running back in the entire landscape last year in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. Just a guy that closed out games. So I know the NFL is going to be excited to see a guy like this, kind of an old school runner, but has the receiving ability to be a modern NFL player.
Good speed. I want to see a little bit more decisiveness behind the line of scrimmage at times. Like you said, as the game goes on, he gets just better and better. Always falling forward too, which I like. He just doesn't get pushed back a lot when he's getting tackled. Now, when I say hard to bring down for Ollie Gordon, it's not due to sheer physicality like Quinshon Judkins and Omarion Hampton. He's really slippery. And one thing I noticed, not a detriment because it's very effective with him, his footwork and running style just appears to be a bit erratic at times, just a little bit spastic, if you will, twitchy, but it works for him. And some guys just look a little different when they run, but it works, and it works really well for Ollie Gordon, obviously over 2,000 scrimmage yards last year. This is a guy who I think coaches are going to love at the next level for sure. What do you think, Nate? Could he push to be a running back 1 if given the opportunity?
Possibly, with the production he's already had, I think that is within the realm of possibilities.
I mean, what did he have? What did you say again last year? 1,700 rushing yards?
1,732 rushing yards, Mike, at 6.1 per attempt, and actually had over 1,000 yards after contact.
Yeah, let's move on. I hope I'm saying his last name right, but he is from Boise State. Ashton Jeanty, making George Halani irrelevant last year.
Oh, man.
Now, I do want to just say here, you have on here small, question mark, 5'9", 215. So is it going to be like Muhammad Ibrahim? He weighs, or he measures in at like 5'7"? Because you know how that goes, right?
Yeah, that's one of my questions with Ashton. Is he actually 5'9"? Because you watch him on the film, and you got to think that's a little exaggerated. Now, if he comes in at 5'8", no big deal. If he comes in at 5'7", that's when you start to get into the territory of, is this guy going to be too small? Now, he's 215 pounds, according to Boise State. We'll see what that comes down to. I don't think he's necessarily small and skinny or lanky or anything like that. I think he does have some good weight to him. So he will obviously come in over 200 pounds. I don't think he's going to drop from 215 to under 200 pounds. Like we saw, Kenny Gainwell came in, I think, at 196 or 193 coming out. It's been a big deal. If you're under 200 pounds as a running back, things don't usually work out too well for you. I don't think we're going to have the problem with Ashton Jeanty. I think it's more so the height. Is he coming at 5'9", 5'8"? I'd like to see that. If he comes in at 5'6", 5'7", I'm going to be a little bit more worried. But should I be worried at all? Because this guy is really, really good, Mike. 6.2 yards per carry last year and was top 5 in missed tackles forced. He was top 5 in yards after contact per attempt. So he's elusive. He's got great contact balance. He is an incredible receiver as well, catching 44 out of 48 targets last year for 578 yards. Mike, he had over 10 yards per reception last year. His yards per route run was 3.19. This guy is uber productive when he gets the ball. And playing for a team like Boise State, he had the option to transfer this year. And he could have transferred anywhere he wanted to, basically. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs a couple years ago transfer from Georgia Tech to Alabama. And what that did for his draft stock, Jahmyr Gibbs was not going top 5, top 10 if he was at Georgia Tech.
No.
He was going top 10 because he was that good. Plus, he got to show it off at Alabama, the big boys in the SEC. So Ashton Jeanty decided to stay in Boise State. I don't know if that will affect his draft capital. Good running backs are good running backs no matter where they are. I have to rank this guy a little bit lower just because I have a bit more questions about his outcome. But pound for pound, one of the best running backs in this draft class for sure.
I'm a huge fan of this guy. And one of the things that impresses me the most is his vision, and not just at the line of scrimmage either, but against all levels. Now, you may say, Mike, I know you always say that they played in a 10-yard window. And yes, that's where, when I say that, that's really where coaches are looking for burst and things like that. I'm talking about the second level against linebackers. What does he do against those guys? The third level against your safeties and corners and stuff like that. And he just knows where these guys are at all times. He knows how to make them miss. He's extremely elusive. He's just a very, very smooth player overall, whether it's running style, it's his receiving. A lot of his movements are very fluid and almost borderline effortless. And I'm really excited to see how he measures in too. Look at me getting excited about a man's measurements on this podcast. But I just love everything he does. And one thing I noticed about him, for a guy who is a smaller stature, not afraid of contact. He can run around you or through you if he has to. So this is a guy that I'm really excited about. And by the way, Nate, Yakrek career 12.8, and last year was 14.1. That's not bad. Hey, look, man, receiving matters, especially for running backs, although it didn't matter much for Bucky Irving, but he didn't have very good combine. I think Ashton Jeanty will have a better combine. I will say I think he's a complimentary back in the NFL.
Yeah, he's not a workhorse.
No, he's not a workhorse. Now, if it comes down to it, can he carry the load for an amount of time? Yeah, I think he could do that. I don't think he's going to be, all season long. Although against San Diego State, 23 carries for 205 yards. He averaged 8.9 yards per carry. Colorado State, 30 carries, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging 7.1 yards per carry. So, he did it against Colorado State and San Diego State, but those state schools are not, an NFL team. So
No.
big difference there. But Nate, let's move on and let's talk about a guy who you've decided is an athlete playing running back. And that is a guy who may end up, after all, being the second best running back on Penn State. That is Nick Singleton. So, Nate, I'm going to let you start with Nick Singleton. Then I'm going to go ahead and rain on everybody's parade.
Well, Nick Singleton, such an incredible freshman season where for Penn State, he came in with Quinshon Allen, the other running back in that backfield, and on only 156 carries, ran for over 1,000 yards, had 6.8 yards per attempt. Nicholas Singleton looked like the next big thing, the next big Penn State running back. Pencil this guy in for the 2025 draft, RB1 and everything. Super excited about him after his freshman year. But then last year, didn't really improve. Actually saw more attempts, had less yards. And not just a couple less yards, but he only averaged 4.4 yards per carry last year. A big drop-off from 6.8 the year before. A little bit of Quinshon Allen getting more involved, a little bit of the offense not being explosive. But with all the running backs in this class, that's disappointing, and he's got to back it up this year that was a fluke year. He's got to come out this year, average 6 yards per carry, look good again, look explosive, because he wasn't as explosive last year. 9 runs of 15 yards or more last year. His freshman season, he had 18, Mike. So he had half the runs of 15 yards or more on more carries. So we need to see the Nicholas Singleton that we saw the first year at Penn State. If we see the Nicholas Singleton that we saw last year at Penn State, I don't know if he'll even be in the top 6 of the running backs once we actually get to the draft class. He might be a guy that stays back. I think there is a large range of outcomes for Nicholas Singleton, because if we see the true freshman Nicholas Singleton again, he's got a chance to get up there into that top 3, top 4, make some noise, be one of the really coveted running backs of this draft class coming in. He's so athletic. He's 6 foot 225, so he's got the size already. So this guy has a lot going for him, but we need to see the improvement this year to really be able to, make sure that he's one of those top 5 guys.
And there was a time too where he was the first Penn State running back to have a 100-yard rushing game in a number of years. And look, I like Nicholas Singleton. I'm a Penn State fan, but one thing I'm not is a homer, and I'm very honest about the players. Maybe I'm a little harder on players that are on teams that I like. But that being said, I'm concerned. The vision is my number one concern for him. He likes to cut outside a little too often for me. Footwork is really good. It's very quick. It's very efficient. For how big he is and how fast he is, I wish he was a little bit more physical. He is just not good at banging between the tackles. They have another guy there for that. I'm going to talk about him in a little bit. And for how athletic he is, his lateral moves are kind of just okay. Movements are smooth, but not anything that makes me go, wow. It's like a one-cut sidestep, maybe a little juke here and there, but he's a pretty much north and south runner. And I think at the end of the day, depending on how this season goes, he could be a 2026 prospect, or, maybe transfer to another school or something like that, depending on what his running mate is. And I think as of right now, I can't pencil him in anything for more than like late day 2, early day 3 back, despite his explosiveness. And he's more of a complimentary piece right now. And obviously things can change.
Hey, yeah. And you talked about, 100 yards in Nicholas Singleton his freshman year, putting up multiple 100-yard games. Last year, Mike, he only had one game over 100 yards. It came in week 13 against Michigan State. Just the production was not there.
But in all fairness, the Penn State offense the last couple of years has been very stagnant. They have a new offensive coordinator this year. I can't remember what his name is, but just the play calling has not been very good. It's just been very, very predictable. Their defense, they keep them in a lot of games. Manny Diaz will be missed. Good luck to you, head coach of Duke. Nate, before we head out of here, do you have any brief honorable mentions you want to discuss?
I do. Got a couple here, 3 for you. We got Devin Neal, who was possibly going to be in the last draft class, but decided to go back to Kansas. So a questionable decision, in my opinion, because I think he would have been a day 2 pick, a top 5 running back by everyone's standards in this past draft class. And in this draft class, if a lot of these guys do declare, it's going to be a competition for him to get in that top 5, to be that day 2 running back as well. So we'll see if he can continue to increase his draft stock from last year. He does have some room to continue to improve, but he's pretty good. We also got Jaden Ott over at California. No one really talks about Jaden Ott, but he has been very, very productive in his time over there in Cal at University of California, Cal. So one of the California teams that we don't talk about a lot in college football, but Jaden Ott has been very good there. And then also one other guy I want to mention is Damian Martinez, formerly of Oregon State, transferred to Miami this offseason. He's a guy that we definitely got to keep an eye on, especially now that he's transferred to Miami. He's going to have some spotlight on him there. Miami is hoping to have a really good season this year. They got Cam Ward, who transfers, the new quarterback. So that offense has a lot of potential. If they reach it, Damian Martinez will be a feature back there. And we could be talking about him, possibly trying to get into that top 5 as well. We got a lot of talent here on this next draft class.
And my honorable mention is Quinshon Allen from Penn State. And I've said it probably as early as 2 years ago, Nate. You might have thought I was a little crazy. I think, to me, Quinshon Allen projects as a better overall NFL running back prospect right now. He does everything so well. His vision is better. His initial burst is as good. He is more physical. He has very good long speed. Is he as fast as Nick Singleton? No, he is not, but his long speed is damn good enough. Very good smooth lateral movements, awesome jump cuts, and this is a guy that can make broken plays into something positive. We've seen it before. He should get tackled behind the line of scrimmage, and he turns it into a 1-yard gain. You're like, oh, 1 yard. Yeah, that's great. Have you ever lost by 0.2? So that tackle in the backfield, that going from -3 yards to +1, that's going to help you. Those are things that coaches like, that keeps them on the field. That keeps them on the field getting you points. That's important. So,
and just to compare,
Love it.
Quinshon Allen did outrush Nicholas Singleton last year. He had 899 yards at 5.2 yards per carry compared to Nicholas Singleton's 4.4 yards per carry.
You could see and kind of feel the changing of the guard as the season progressed. They kept favoring Quinshon Allen over Nick Singleton, and it's just, I really feel like it's probably Allen's job to lose at this point.